Good afternoon on what is a warm, bright and sunny day. It is Sunday, May the 5th, and I'm in the reading nook with a nice hot cup of tea and a package to unbox. And this, has got these two in here. So let's pull one of these, the first one. These out. Turns out I pulled out both of them. So, this is Baker Street, role-playing in the world of Sherlock Holmes, Sherlock by Gaslight. Now, let me see. So, Whitechapel, 1888. Women are being murdered in London's East End. Your investigators are hired to solve the world's most famous unsolvable crime. Jack the Ripper is hiding in the shadows and fuels your fears the closer you get to the truth. In addition to the Ripper campaign guide, this source book features all new professions for investigators, several new reprobates for the mastermind, and over 50 London locations, each with a new plot hook that can be converted into a whole night of whodunit. So, this is a supplement for Baker Street role-playing in the world of Sherlock Holmes. It's really very quite interesting. It's sort of like, when everyone thinks of London during the Victorian period, especially during the late Victorian period, they automatically leap to the adventures of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John Watson, as written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Such that you will not find very many Victorian era role-playing games where they are not included as NPCs. And the problem kind of with having them in a game is they will actually go and solve the crime for you. They will go and deal with the problem for you because they're more capable than the player characters. And they're far more capable than the players because essentially they have plot on their side. So I have a kind of issue where I'm not hugely keen on having Sherlock Holmes turn up in a role-playing game. Especially with whether that's configured by Gaslight, or indeed the same with something like Jack the Ripper, who's a real-world serial killer, never caught, and so on, and having to sort of like deal with that issue and provide a possible solution to that. Plus, I always kind of feel it's a bit of a cliche. Both are really a bit of a cliche. Whereas I think more interesting stories can be told with other characters and without them. But this doesn't mean that that's my opinion, and other people are going to want to include them. So this is a London source book for Baker Street role-playing in the world of Sherlock Holmes, featuring the Whitechapel murders adventure. And when it comes to sort of like role-playing in that kind of setting with Sherlock Holmes, is that there isn't really any other role-playing game that kind of deals with that directly. They'll include the character and so on. This one does. The nearest one that kind of did was really a board game, or sort of like an investigative clue game, and that's Consulting Detective, which came out in the 80s. And that does involve a bit of role-playing and handling clues. And infamously, when my friend played it, I wasn't part of that group because he would charge. You would play members of the Baker Street irregulars, and my friend was playing a child prostitute, which would have been a period appropriate, if not quite, game appropriate, if you see what I mean. Anyway, so we start off. We've got professions: Iceman, Knocker Up, Link Boy, Mudlark, Police Sergeant. So these are new professions. Postal Clerk, Letter Carrier, Telegraphist, Town Husband, Tramps, Vagabonds, Victorian Photographers, Workhouse Staff, Chaplains, Nurses, So lots of these new occupations. including workhouse pauper, workhouse medical officer, workhouse seamstress, yeoman, warder, beefeater, and so on, and more. We've got neighbourhoods in London. So describing, breaking them down according to class: upper class, middle class, lower class, and lower class. So a discussion of those, overview. Then we have Greater London Metropolitan Area map, London locations, and then, for example, then we've got basically some really quite grand locations in London, because one of the great things is that the Victorians were really good at clearing locations and building grand constructs and buildings. So, for example, such as the Abbey Mills pumping station. You've got some adventure, some basic description and some plot hooks. Then Bethlehem Royal Hospital, known as Bedlam as time went on. Crystal Palace, which great exhibition location, opened in 1853, something like that, 1854. Denton Hansom cab dispatch yard. Now this is entirely fictitious, but it's the idea you would have a location from which you would dispatch hansom cabs, which would go out across the streets, and were the primary method of people getting around the city, for the wealthy, if they didn't have their own carriage. But at the same time, you'd have other methods of transport. Later on, you'd have horse-drawn kind of big buses, and then even later on, you'd have a London Underground. Across other locations, these aren't fictional. So Highgate Cemetery, famously where Karl Marx is buried. Kensington Kew Gardens, where basically great repository of all things botanical. And London sewers. Essentially, London sewage system is considered one of the wonders of the industrial world. Its construction began in 1859 in reaction to the Great Stink of 1858 and multiple cholera outbreaks, designed by Sir Joseph Bazalgette, head of the Metropolitan Board of Works. So lots of nice bits of history in there. The Great Stink was when the sewers overflowed and the effluents went into the Thames, clogged the Thames, and really set it onto it. Basically, made one of the most polluted rivers in the world at the time. But it stank so much. The MPs in the House of Commons in Parliament, which actually sits on the bank of the Thames, couldn't sit because of the stench. So they acted because of that. And then you had cholera outbreaks as well during the earlier, and so on. So, basic plot hooks. And you've also got threat meter suggestions for activities and so on. Then we deal with, of course, the London Underground, which I mentioned earlier. You have Morrow View and his son's gunsmithery. London at the time was renowned for its gunsmiths. If you come to a city like Birmingham, there was a whole district dedicated just to the design and manufacture of firearms. You had a gun quarter. You've also got a jewellery quarter in the city as well. And then we move on to the Whitechapel district, the area in East London where, of course, Jack the Ripper struck in 1888. So Whitechapel points of interest, including an encounter with, see, we get a little bit more fantastical here with encounter with Spring-Heeled Jack. Christchurch, one of the major churches there. Frying Pan Public House. So, really providing just more and more locations. Basically 10 Bells Pub next to Christchurch, and Tower Bridge, which still stands today. And we do the same for Old London City. This is the area. This essentially is the city mile, the square mile of the city, overseen by the City of London Police. You've got locations such as the British Museum, great repository of artefacts and items from around the world. Newgate Prison, notorious jail, the Stock Exchange. And that's the same thing for Westminster, which essentially is a seat of power in London. Includes Buckingham Palace, where Queen Victoria would sit. And then on the bank of the Thames, Cleopatra's Needle, the Great Obelisk, and the clock tower of Big Ben, actually known as Elizabeth Tower. East India Club for men who served in the East India Company. Great parks, the centre of London, Hyde Park, Lambeth Palace, which is basically home to the Bishop of Canterbury, or Archbishop of Canterbury, I should say. Actually, that's where he is based on, obviously, as the head of the Church of England, obviously, despite actually being the Archbishop of Canterbury, which is in Kent. National Gallery for all your portraiture and landscape paintings. Piccadilly Circus, and here we're getting some more of the commercial side of London, but it has locations such as Royal Albert Hall for great performances, the Strand magazine for all of the interesting articles and all of the short stories by Arthur Conan Doyle for Sherlock Holmes, Trafalgar Square, basically memorial and celebrating Nelson's victories, Westminster Abbey for national celebration, religious celebration, and then we have the official start of the official adventure with the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, which was set up in the wake of the first few murders by Jack the Ripper. So a guide to handling that. Different scenes such as a call to arms and patrolling Spitalfields Market, patrolling Dorset Street, and one of the scenes of the crime, and so on. What happens when the player characters investigate those particular locations, various NPCs, and we have also Baker Street clue cards. And then we've got the Whitechapel murders. This is another second, basically the second official adventure in here. I've got a more detailed description of Whitechapel with advice for the game master, guides on handling the threat meter for the adventure, and then the different scenes play out. Of course, the adventure going from Baker Street to Bucks Rose and Polly Nichols murder, and so on. You have basically a newspaper excerpt. What happens when you actually want to trap the Ripper there? Seen there at the 10 Bells Public House, described earlier. What happens on the second day in Whitechapel? horror upon horror, Whitechapel is panic-stricken at another fiendish crime. I'm following up the clues. So this is quite a lengthy adventure. We've got basically murder of Lestrade, discovery of body of Catherine Eddowes, and it's quite a famous drawing, would have been appeared in the newspapers of the constable discovering the unfortunate. And then we've got the NPCs, including a bit of a clue as to who the actual perpetrator is. And we've got the handouts. And some of the infamous replication of some of the infamous letters that were posted supposedly by Jack the Ripper. And essentially, we've got these clue cards filled out or further detailed. Location templates there, an upper class gentleman's club. Lesser class Anglican church and a wealthy flat, a workhouse and a doss house. Workhouse is where the poor were placed because they couldn't get work and essentially didn't have enough money, and essentially they were worked very hard. They were essentially, it was as much poor relief as it was punishment, and so on. And then so on, we have Kickstarters who backed and provided images for the various NPCs and so on. And that is Baker Street, Sherlock by Gaslight, the Whitechapel source book, and Jack the Ripper murder book for the Baker Street role-playing game. Well, I hope you enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook. If you did, then please do click on the like button down below. And if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to get more unboxings of the Nook, where you'll see me out here with a box containing a book or game, or in this case a supplement for Baker Street, which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. But, sorry, a bit of tree leaf in my tea. Then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching another unboxing in the Nook. I will be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.